here with entrepreneur and beauty guru Eleanor Fulcher, who's kindly invited me into her house to talk about her glamorous life and the impact she's had on women. Thank you, Eleanor.
Thank you for inviting me. I love it. This is great.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes,
I can't wait to hear all your stories.
Thank you.
Now, you grew up surrounded by strong women. Your mother, of course, but also both your grandmothers. What impact did they have on your life?
I don't think when you're growing up that you have any idea of the impact that your close relatives are having on you at the time.
Right.
It's only in retrospect that I can appreciate how very, very strong my two grandmothers were. They never had any opportunities because they all had big families in those days, right? 6 kids,
Yes.
no help. You did everything. The strength of those women in those days, unbelievable. I don't think today that any of the kids of this generation would have any kind of resourcefulness like that because they're much more pampered, okay? And we just were brought up in a stage where you never were pampered about anything.
And you are a mother and a grandmother yourself. So as a role model for your family, what example are you setting?
Well, I hope that I'm trying to teach them, as we just said, little courtesies such as please and thank you. I think a lot of the kids today expect too much. They don't know about hardships. They don't know what it's like not to have enough money to buy enough food. Do you know, they've never experienced that, so how could they know? And you try to teach them little by little, you know, just the little amenities of life that are so important. You've got to find yourself and be happy within yourself at what you're doing. You are responsible for your own happiness, okay? No one else. And so don't blame anyone if you're not happy.
What sparked your interest in becoming a model?
Well, I never wanted to become a model. That wasn't what sparked my interest in the initial stage. When I was working at Lever Brothers and I was only 16 and I was sent up to the executive floor is when they wanted me to look older once they decided to keep me on. And it's a whole story in the book, but it's just, I was 16.
And you were the youngest employee that Lever Brothers ever hired.
Yes, totally. And so I wanted to fit in, and so my boss said, now maybe Eleanor, you could take some sort of self-improvement course to just, you know, I mean, I was in bobby socks, I'm a kid, you know, and I understood what he was saying.
Right.
And I needed money to work and to buy clothes, right? But in those days, you were either a secretary, you know, or a nurse, or a stewardess, or a teacher.
Yep.
That was
Not many options.
4 professions open to women in those days. Never, ever in a million years thinking that I would be a model.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what that was or what the image was in those days. I was very happy as a secretary at Lever Brothers, right? I wasn't looking for a new career or anything. But because I was enjoying the course so much, I just thought, well, I'll keep going, you know, this is fun. And I had a dancing background. You see, my dancing, my tap and ballet and so on for years. My mother wanted me to be Eleanor Powell. That won't mean anything to you.
No, I know that era. I love Hollywood.
Oh, well,
old Hollywood in the studio era. Yeah,
Well, when I was born, she was the big star, Eleanor Powell.
And you were named after Eleanor Powell.
I was named after Eleanor Powell. My mother wanted me to be a star. She wanted me to be a dancer and go to Hollywood. That was it. Her dreams for me, right? So she had me in dancing by the time I was 5. So I go into this modeling course, and of course I've got all this dancing background.
So it must have helped then with your poise and your structure.
Everything. I mean, it was a natural, when you think of it, I mean, modeling is walking and, you know, image and movement. And so when I got in there, I thought, boy, could they ever benefit from some of these exercises that we had from dancing?
Dance, yeah.
And I found that my background just fit, you know, for modeling.
Yeah.
Like it was just a perfect fit. I came by it so easily with the walk, the whole thing. And so that's how I ended up, you know, doing the modeling.
How did you go from being a secretary at Lever Brothers to the associate director at Walter Thornton Modeling Agency?
Well, I guess what happened is that when I was 17 and I left Lever Brothers to go and teach part-time at Walter Thornton, because I took the course and then I started teaching part-time.
Right.
And then what happened is that the man who owned it, Gary Carter, his wife, Miss May, no one knew they were married. I mean, this is those days. And she wanted to replace herself as associate director. And so she asked these 4 ladies if they would come in and be interviewed. And she said, oh, by the way, Eleanor, I'd like you to try out too, even though I was only 18 at the time, 19, I guess, by that time.
But still young compared to the other women
Oh,
that are
yeah,
going
they've
for
been
this
around in
job.
the modeling field for a while, and they've done a lot of things and so on. So they were all about 25. To run a company, you can't just walk in and say, well, I know how to model and how to teach modeling. You have to have some smarts about the business end.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, having worked at Lever Brothers, I'd learned that. I'd learned big business.
How did your 7 years as associate director at Walter Thornton help prepare you for opening the Eleanor Fulcher Beauty School, and then ultimately your modeling school and the agency?
When I became the associate director in Newark Data, I loved the business. I loved it. I loved taking somebody with potential, because I believe everyone has potential, becoming their friend, their mentor, helping them with a new look, a new attitude. I just found it was so fulfilling. But I didn't know it at the time that I was building my profile for my own business. I didn't know that.
What challenges did you face when you were in the early stages of starting up your own business?
Oh gosh, there were so many. There were so many. I didn't think I could do it, but I thought, my 7 years are up. I can't work for this amount of money anymore. I can always go back, I guess, to being a secretary, but I've got to try this business because I love it. So I thought, I'll go after the over 25 because that was an age group that were ignored. Gary Carter thought they were all old maids, 25.
25.
That
I'm
was
25.
Yeah. No, you're an old maid, 25 and over in those days, an old maid, right? And so I thought, that's the demographics I thought I'll focus on. I won't compete with him, in other words.
Right.
So I didn't have any money, to start a business. So first of all, I hit Joseph Bobick with his beautiful salon. I noticed he only used it 3 nights a week, and I thought, I could use it the other 3 nights. I wonder if this would work out. I go to Joseph, start at the top. He had the most beautiful salon. And I proposed to him that he let me have it 3 nights a week at 6 o'clock, and he can get all my students. I'll pay him a percentage, like he'll make extra money with downtime, like he's not using it. And he just looked at me and he just said, sounds like a good idea, Eleanor. He says, let's try it. Then I had to get an ad ready, and I thought, I don't have an ad. And from my advertising background at Lever Brothers and so on, I went out and I found this lady on the street, and she was the right age group. She looked about 30-ish, and she didn't look very good. And I thought, oh, I could do a lot with her. So I proposed to her. I can't pay you, but I can give you a picture.
Right.
We take her in, we get a before picture done of her, and, it was pretty, well, it was what I thought it would be, right?
Yeah.
She was 30-year-old, had long hair, and didn't do anything with her makeup. Wonderful bones, and so on. And then I did her makeup, and Joseph Bobick did her hair, and here I have this great before and after picture of that age group. And put the ad in, then I got the phone calls, and and that's how I got my first group of 8 women. It grew so fast, I couldn't believe it. It really was amazing. We had, at any one time, we had about 2,000 students.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was your objective for the school?
Well, my objective for them, for each of the students, was to make sure that they would be in our Model of the Year show. And that show got so big that I had so many different venues, Park Plaza and the Royal York and so on. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I loved doing the show. And they had to go in the show, it's once a year. And that was their objective, is to be in the show, which meant they had to be great.
What makes a good model?
What makes a good model is determination. It has really, in the long run, not to do with whether she's more beautiful or more this or more that. Probably she's just more determined. The ones that end up making it to the finish line of modeling want it very badly.
You fought hard to give Canadian models a fair chance and a positive reputation. Would you say that Canadians today are accepted equally internationally?
Oh, absolutely.
Canadian models?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There was this image back when I started. It was so bad in those days, and this is going back to the 50s and part of the 60s too, where the big clients used to go to New York and fly in American models from New York. Not even auditioning any of the Canadian models. It was just understood that the American models were much better for whatever reasons. And so, yeah, we had a lot of fighting to do in those days. I fought and fought and fought. And finally, I got to the government that they would not allow them to bring in American models unless they had auditioned Canadian models. And we had a phone number to call if they didn't do it.
What fad, if you could abolish any fad, past or present, what would you choose?
Oh my God, the high heels. Oh, the shoes. I mean, really, when I see, and it's got to be men designing these shoes, because they don't have to wear them. I wish they had to walk around in them for a day.
That'd be interesting to see.
Wouldn't it? Comfort is really important. As you get older and mature, you realize, why do I need those? You know, who cares what I'm wearing on my feet if they're going to be high, low, in between? It's my choice.
And if you're comfortable, you're confident as well.
That's right. And you must be comfortable, because if you're going to be, I know somebody who's comfortable in high heels, and that's great. And she walks faster than I do in flats. I mean, but it's up to you. You have the final say, of course. And if you're comfortable in high heels and you like the way they look, that's fine too. I don't have any problem with that. But I can tell you that 8 out of 10 people are not comfortable all day long in high heels. So don't wear them then. Get a shoe that you're comfortable in.
You'd already established your name, your modeling school, and your agency. So what inspired you to own and operate the first spa in Canada?
Well, as in all things in life, you sort of stumble into things. Things just sort of, the dots connect in your life somehow. It all came about because in the summer I decided I wanted to take the children up north, and I was looking for a cottage. And I looked at 3 cottages and I didn't like them, and there was a 4th cottage that was too big, and I thought, well, it's on the way back, I'll just drop in. As I drove down this incline towards Lake Muskoka, it was like this house, I was mesmerized by this view. It was like, oh my God, that's Muskoka, that's beautiful. Now the house, you know, the cottage house, I didn't like, it was too big, but we could use the main area of it, okay? And I had the view, that was the most important thing. And I could picture us on a boat with the kids, with the swimming, with the dock. I mean, it was all there. And it was the first spa in Canada. And what we had to go through to get it rezoned and to go through all this, I closed the spa because I realized then that spas now are becoming, you know, more common.
Right.
One of the girls, and I had all these business women coming up there, she says, my company would love it if you're going to close it. Could they possibly take it over for the summer? And I said, yeah, sure, I guess. You know, I hadn't got that far in my thinking. And I made money doing nothing. I didn't do anything. I didn't have any responsibilities. And I made a profit for the first time in my life. So I just rented it out corporately after that. I just thought, well, this is easy. I'll just move on with something else, which I did.
I've always been a fan of Hollywood's studio era, like I mentioned before. And I know that you got to meet one of my favorites, Elizabeth Taylor.
Oh, yeah.
What was that like?
She was a friend of George Abbott, who was my makeup artist.
Right.
Okay, and he designed my makeup program. And he was really the best makeup artist, in my opinion, in North America. But the thing is with George, because of his background, he knew everything about the film industry. He had a hobby about the filming.
Right.
He knew everything. So when Elizabeth Taylor came up and was working up the street here, he was working with her. She said to him one day, you know, I regret not remembering the name of the trainer in National Velvet, her first movie that made her famous.
Right.
And he helped me so much, not just with riding horses, but everything else. And George said, oh, he's still around. He's actually done 2 movies since, and he's done da-da-da-da. And she just looked at him and said, how would you ever know that? Well, I don't know. I just, you know, I'm interested.
Yeah.
I was interested in your movie and interested in him, and of course that did it. You see, because people in show business, right, and no film, that to meet somebody who is that knowledgeable, so she kept up this running thing with George,
Right.
you know, throughout the years. So when she had her 50th birthday, you know, I said, you gotta invite me, okay? So I did. I went and I met her, and she had a cold, and she had these eyes that, you know, she had this fan and these violet eyes, you know, were looking at. I thought, violet eyes. I don't think I've ever seen violet eyes, you know. It was unbelievable. She was just the real goods, you know, and this is the thing, that they loved her in Hollywood.
You published your book, Changing Looks, Changing Lives, in 2013.
Yeah.
Where did you get the title from?
I had several titles that I had suggested. Ready for Everything was going to be the one that was used. Changing Looks, Changing Lives was one I'd come up with. I have a friend, Joan Frankel, and I couldn't decide. I had those two as the final titles. And Joan knows me. She's in the book. She saved my life once through, the Heimlich maneuver. And she's a journalist. And she made the decision for me. I phoned her one day and I just said, I can't decide on these two titles. And she says, well, let me tell you, Eleanor. She says, Ready for Anything is you. Okay, I know you're ready for anything. She says, but Changing Looks, Changing Lives is what you did. And she says, that is you too. Mm-hmm. She says, it's more you. Because it's your business and it was your life and it was,
Right.
I said, thank you. Okay, hung up the phone and that was done,
Yeah. Well, I loved the book. I read
Thank
it. I thought there was so much character in the writing. It felt like you were personally telling me these stories face to face.
Oh, I'm so glad to
And
hear
some
that.
of them were just hysterical, the things you've gone through. And it's like you couldn't even make it up if you tried. Like,
No, you couldn't.
Unbelievable. Read the book and you'll know what I'm talking about. If you could choose one thing from your career, just one, what are you most proud of?
Well, I guess I'm most proud of the whole concept of teaching people their potential and bringing out their potential and making them feel confident. I loved working one-on-one with the students and developing them. I loved hearing them say, I can't, and say, that's a challenge, okay? That's what I really loved. That's who I was. And the rest was really awful because the more I got removed from the front line of what I liked doing, the more I missed it.
And even though you have sold the business, the Eleanor Fulcher company, you still carry the name in the industry.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your upcoming speaking engagement on May 14th at the Canadian Career College.
So it's not just that one. It's going to be with all the colleges and and hopefully universities and companies. I just want to get the message out there because I think that the book hopefully will inspire women, especially women, because primarily I worked with women. I did work with men too. In the end, we ended up with a very successful male program. The males can all benefit from the message, okay? The message is the same for everyone. It's just, you've only got one life to live.
Yeah.
And don't think you got forever. Make hay while the sun shines. Get on with it and do what you have to do and don't put it off and find out what you're supposed to be doing.
What advice do you have for women who want to age gracefully?
I just think that you're in charge of your own health. I would mention the story perhaps that I could be dead by now, maybe 2 or 3 times come to think of it, because Joan Frankel saved my life with the Heimlich maneuver.
Right.
And Paul Miller, a friend of my husband's, saved me because he knew a friend who was a doctor who knew a doctor who pulled my chart and found out they misread it and I had cancer, and they operated on me 2 days later, and here I am. That was now like 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So you just never know. And doctors are wonderful, but they're not infallible.
And what beauty tips do you have?
Oh, my beauty tips are just find your look that you're happy with and do it every day, okay, in the morning, first thing. And just get in the habit of doing it, okay? Don't think, it's just like brushing your teeth. You would think of not brushing your teeth. Well, then don't think of not putting cream on your face to keep it young. People often say to me, how do you, what creams do you use? And this, what's the regular use of the same thing every day, and the massaging of the skin, and the, putting a cream on to lubricate, and it's simple little things, but you do them every day, it multiplies. It's like your fitness routine, right? I do 40 minutes every morning of fitness. It's a habit. Just get in the habit for you of feeling good and looking good.
Well, thank you so much, Eleanor. I really appreciate this. And
what a pleasure to work with you.
It was an honor meeting you and an honor talking with you. So
thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And if you want to learn more about Eleanor, you can read her book, Changing Looks, Changing Lives, and look for her at her upcoming speaking engagements. And I don't think I've ever met anybody who has worked for a hitman before. So